On 24th of March, Bloodborne, the action RPG slash survival horror game, turned 9 years old. That's right, this bloody masterpiece is one of my favourite games of all time. Brought to us by FromSoftware, one of my favourite studios of all time. As a belated birthday special, we are here at the Cottz HQ, wanted to introduce you to the hauntingly beautiful and gothic city of Yharnam on the night of the hunt. A perfect place for a unicorn like you to get lost in. Figuratively and literally, you will get lost. We will quickly set up the plot and jump into tips and tricks for new players in mind. Veterans, feel free to list some of your tips in the comments below. So whether you have tried this game before, beaten the nightmare, or thinking about it, here's some beginners' tips and tricks to help us celebrate. Yharnam is a city with secrets built upon secrets, overcome by a plague that is now turning its residents into nightmarish monsters. You've recently arrived to the outskirts of Yharnam for the same reason most people seek the city outskirts, to be healed of whatever illness that afflicts them, by using the pale blood to do this. While undergoing treatment for an illness, you begin to hallucinate and black out. Upon waking, you discover you are now in a different clinic deep within the city of Yharnam. On top of all that, a werewolf has broken in. Feeling brave or stupid, depending on who you ask, you attempt to take on this werewolf only to be gutted by the monster and die. And it is very possible to win. I just usually find it easier to do the thing and just die. But don't worry, you awake in the hunter's dream, your main hub of the game. You are to become the newest hunter with the mission of discovering the source of the pale blood and cleansing the city of Yharnam from the plague to end the eternal night of the hunt, damning the city and its residents. In the hunter's dream, you will select a trick weapon and gun, and a quick introduction to the the living doll. You return to the world of the living to get some revenge on the wolfy boy from a few moments before. With the werewolf defeated, you can now finally exit the clinic and get your first glimpse of the city in all its gothic glory and bask in its awe. Ah, praise the sun. Okay, with all that said and done, here's some tips and tricks for new players to help you get through this game. So you've decided to actually give Bloodborne a try. Congratulations! What are some things you should expect, and what is some advice I can pass along as someone that has played through and somehow platinumed the game? First and foremost, don't feel bad for wanting to quit, or if you have quit. When I first played, I will admit, I rage quitted and it took me at least a year to come back to it. Funny story, I actually did not know how to equip weapons, so I thought you had to kill everything with your fists. Yes guys, it was my first FromSoftware game, what else would I be doing? Surprisingly, I did kill everything around the bonfire in the central town square with just my fists. I don't know how I did it. I kept questioning, this can't be possibly how you play it, is it? I kept cursing the game. I should have been pointing that blame on this noob right here. FromSoftware can be cruel, but they ain't that cruel, right? Guys, right? Somebody? And yes, we know it's annoying, but we've all nearly rage quit when the blood-starved beast kills you while she only has 1% HP left, or Ludwig kills you around 20 times with his opening jump move. Seriously, get used to dying. If you haven't figured it out from the get used to dying, this game is hard. Like really hard. Like so super hard you'll question what you're doing with your life several times before even finishing the game. And it just gets harder the further you go and the more you play. Like for real, each New Game Plus playthrough gets harder than the last playthrough, at least from a numerical standpoint. But dear sweet Ron the Vacuous Spider, if it doesn't feel good when you get it done. Be ready to grind. The game, again, doesn't make this all that obvious, but it's a good idea to start with grinding in mind for blood vials and blood echoes to level up. You will at times find yourself needing to farm blood vials, your healing potions of this game, as they are finite unlike Estus flasks from Dark Souls, because you will die, remember? And on this awesome journey, you will be racking up that blood vial usage. You can typically start leveling up as soon as you reach your first boss, which is one of two options. or if you find the currency known as insight before this, which is obtained by seeing and killing bosses and also consuming an item known as Madman's Knowledge found early on in the swords. See that bridge when you first look out into Yharnam? Just saying guys, that should be where you set your first sights. It's there for a reason. Once done, meticulously clear the first couple of areas directly around and scoop up those oh so lovely blood echoes, which are your spending currency on most items, and once again, leveling. Go back to the hunter's dream with your echoes before you die and lose them all. So that's fun, right? Right? Am I having fun yet? Keep an eye on your insight. The game doesn't do the best job explaining what it does, just like most things in the game, but it works as a secondary currency used to summon other hunters or trade in the hunter's dream for clothing and other special items. But it also allows you to see the unseen eldritch horrors that are causing the plague, or even some monsters gain additional effects. Having too much insight causes you to go insane quicker from the frenzy effect and lose 70% of your max HP. Keep a small stock of consumables against status effects like sedatives in this case. In addition to dying, get used to getting lost and or hitting dead ends in this game. Bloodborne is one of those games that tries to make the map interconnected, and it works, for the most part, and often requires you going back to previous areas to access a newer area that was just unlocked by a boss fight, which neatly brings us onto the optional areas. Not only are there plenty of optional areas, the majority of bosses are optional in the base game, with only 7 out of the original 17 being mandatory to finish the game. And just to show you how optional many things are, technically even the intended final bosses, and that's boss is, because each of them are also optional. Optional inception, people. The game does have an online mode where people will drop sometimes useful messages on the ground to warn you, or troll you, but most importantly you can buy a small resonant bell and then ring a beckoning bell, which you'll find in the hunter's dream after you gain your first insight, to summon a player forth to help you kill a boss. Don't be ashamed if that's the only way you can beat bosses. It's not something I've ever done, but you do you. You can alternatively use the in-game NPCs, usually located near the boss area, to summon their bell, but bear in mind each summon increases the boss's health. Never, and I mean never, let your guard down. Like, don't even blink without pausing unless you know the area is cleared. The second you look away is the second something jumps out and one-shots you, and this game likes hiding things out of plain sight. Practice caution, caution, caution. Pressing the lock-on button can help you scan the area for enemies who play dead or slightly off camera. Don't fall victim to their ambushes. And with that said, learn when to use lock-on and when not to use the lock-on to an enemy. Locking on makes you dodge like the wind, but won't allow you to roll like when you aren't locked on. Both have their benefits and drawbacks based on the enemies currently coming for you. While a tricky and very quickly timed combat mechanic, try your best to make use of the repose mechanic, essentially parrying with your gun. Seriously, repose will be your best friend if you're quick enough to hit them when giving the chance in combat. Repose is a parry and counter attack mechanic, and it requires nearly perfect timing to pull off, but it will do a huge amount of damage. The key thing to listen or even look out for is an audio alert, kind of like a door slamming noise or a shing, followed by the enemy falling to their knees. These are the get ready and now alerts for your repose. Keep an eye out for those. You can make good practice with this with the bigger mobs that carry blocks in central Yharnam before unlocking the gate to the shortcut leading back to the lamp, or more precisely, the elevator leading to Gascoigne, who will be a great test for parrying, and that's why I'm going be like the shing that you're going to hear from the parrying, because Gascoigne is all about the parrying. And speaking of tricks, your trick weapon can transform. Get comfortable with knowing its variations and attacks for different situations such as thrusting or sweeping attacks, dash attacks, and even combos. Pick weapons that match your playstyle, and then build your character around that playstyle and weapon stats. You will always be quite squishy, but you can never do wrong with raising your vitality and endurance early in the game. Leveling also increases your defense, but eventually it tapers off a cliff, I think around level 70 or so. Status effects can be your friend. Adding fire to your weapon is very effective against beasts, so use it against bosses in particular that are beasts. Bolt is good against celestial mobs and kittens, for example. So put that paper to good use. When you get hit, notice the orange bar on your health bar. This is regainable life if you're aggressive enough to fight back the enemy when you just got hurt. But just because you can does not mean you need to all the time. Know when to back off and heal, and when to get in a hit or two before repeating. We will literally be clutching victory from the jaws of defeat time and time again. Don't get mad at the game, get mad at you. If you get mad, you'll want to rush. If you rush, you'll just start dying to the dumbest ways possible. Take breaks if you find yourself getting mad. This game is frustrating like its predecessors. You know those Souls games people told you about that are hard and you need to get good, like people telling me on my Twitch chat? And like I said, had many a gamer beating it just out of spite after rage quitting it several times. You'll be back. They always come back. Be brave, be bold, and dodge or rush straight down the enemy's center when they are coming at you swinging. If that doesn't work, dodge to the left. I'm not sure why, but the majority of enemies leave major gaps in their attacks that allow you to avoid them if you rush them, and the rest of them all seem to have blind spots if you go to their left. Sometimes letting an enemy kill you is the only way to access certain areas of the game, like the kidnappers early on in the church area, so knock yourself out. Also, don't attack something until it tries to attack you. Potential allies and friendly NPCs can be killed or made hostile if you attack them by mistake. And Bloodborne is just like Macbeth. What's done is done, so there's no second chances. Seriously, some of the friendly NPCs look horrifying, while some of the less friendly ones look totally normal. Speaking of NPCs, they are very obscure in this game, and getting their help or even chatting to them can be difficult. They will change as the moon changes phases throughout the game, locking you out of their obscure quest lines easily. I wouldn't worry about this on a first playthrough, just use a wiki. And just because it is another hunter like you does not make them friendlies. You will encounter a lot of other hunters in the city. Most of them will attack you without a word, so approach with caution. The good thing, these don't respawn upon death. I always liked to consider these as mini bosses. And finally, the Old Hunters DLC can be ventured into early in the game after the Cathedral Ward has been cleared in reality, but that would be just foolish. Hold off on this area until you are near the end of the base game, maybe around the time of a particular burning building event in a familiar place, when someone wants to join the hunt. And there's our tips and tricks to help you, a newbie, get through this game. And after having replayed it recently on its 9th birthday, I can say the game still holds up well to games being released today in 2024 in terms of theme, mechanics, and general gameplay. Sure, the fine details of a character's appearance are clearly from a time before 4K resolution, and yeah, it would be nice to get a 60 FPS port to the game on Steam, but as a standalone title, it holds its ground among other AAA titles and remains beloved by long-time fans and first-time players quite well, even 9 years on. So this is one I would highly recommend to any action RPG fans out there, or people who want to try out an action RPG with a Souls-like feel for the first time. Just to remember,
we are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open.
Fear the old blood.